Hi, welcome to Courageous Journeys. I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thanks for joining me today. This year, during the holidays, I'm doing a series on social media on different kinds of stress and struggle through the holidays. And this week is about the importance of connection. So I wanted to do this video because connection is challenging. And the idea of connection, I think, can be part of the reason that it's challenging. So, what comes to mind when you think about connection? Do you notice a reaction in your body? The idea of connection is challenging for, I think, a lot of people in general, but for anybody who's had traumatic experiences, been betrayed by somebody that you've trusted, it creates many other layers of difficulty around connection. So one of the things that is kind of coming up is feeling really lonely. And feeling lonely sucks. It just does. It's not a good feeling, and it so significantly reinforces a sense of unworthiness. And people will often think that being around people is the antidote to feeling kind of lonely or isolated. But in reality, for a lot of people, they can feel even more lonely when they're around people or after they've spent time with people. And that can feel really confusing, and it can reinforce the fear that lives inside of you that connection doesn't work, that it sucks, that it leaves you feeling worse. Because in your experience, all of that may very well be true. But being around people does not automatically mean that you're connecting. And I would say for most people, that isn't the case. It isn't the case that we're actually connecting, particularly with larger groups of people or a family unit, a friend group. Because in order to feel truly connected, where we feel the sense of ease and peace and love, and not love as we generally think about it, but this openness, this receiving and giving generously. That is connection. But for so many people, when we're around other people, we feel like we have to show up in a particular way. We have to fill the role that they've gotten accustomed to us performing in, whether it's the supportive one, the funny one, the wise one, the distracting one that can just, always fill your ear with lots of stories. But we often, in our groups that we connect in, or even one-on-one, we show up in a way that is expected of us. And sometimes that expectation is our own. We've created that expectation. Sometimes it is other people, but much of the time it is our own idea. But when we feel like we have to show up in a particular way or perform in a particular way, it means that we're not showing up authentically. How many times have you interacted with somebody that you don't know very well, or somebody that you know quite well and have had a long relationship with? How often do you communicate with them, in person or otherwise, where you are really open and honest about where you're at? If you're struggling with something, what you really think or feel about something. right? When this is kind of a joke, but it's reality. When somebody says, "How are you?" How often do you actually answer that truthfully? And of course, there are times that it's not meant to be answered truthfully. It's just something that people do habitually, kind of like for my previous video, apologizing without even thinking about it, even when you've done nothing wrong. But when it comes to people that we could truly be connected with, if we are not showing up as our true selves, then we can never feel truly connected, because we know, even if subconsciously, we know that the person that they're engaging with is the mask that we're wearing. We know that we're not necessarily sharing what's happening inside of us. We're not sharing that we're really struggling with something. We're not sharing that you're really depressed or anxious or not looking forward to the holidays, especially if they're talking about how excited they are about something. When we know that we're not showing up fully authentically, then any support, any level of connection that they're expressing towards us, we don't have the opportunity to fully take that in, to experience that at a cellular level, because we've got this mask on. And so when we're around people and we feel more alone, more like even feeling like we're using a lot more energy because we have to show up in a particular way, that loneliness is coming from a reality, a knowing within yourself that you're not fully connecting with that person. And so you feel even more distanced from them. And again, that could be somebody that you don't know that well, or it could be somebody that you consider your best friend. But when they're asking you how you're doing, or what you're looking forward to or not looking forward to, what's wrong with you, from a caring standpoint, not like what's wrong with you as a judgment, but like what's going on with you, it seems like something's wrong. When we don't allow ourselves to be fully seen in that, and there are reasons why we don't, and there's no judgment about this, but what it creates is this disconnect, because we know that all of this is happening internally and we're keeping it inside, which creates that distance. And then, as I said at the beginning, people will often feel worse. They'll feel more anxious. They'll feel more alone, more disconnected. And they think it's because of the connection that they tried to make. And so they'll tell themselves that it's just not worth it, that it doesn't work, that people don't really want to connect with them, that they don't really want to connect with other people. But it's not that. It really isn't that at all. It's that we are not allowing ourselves to truly experience what connection feels like. And I want to be clear, this isn't, again, it's not a judgment, and it's certainly not putting all the responsibility on you or on any one person, because truly the person that you're engaging with may not be that interested in seeing the real you. So who we're choosing to show up fully with matters, and that is important. Choosing to be vulnerable, to show up without a mask, we have to be mindful of who we're doing that with. Because if we do it with somebody who's not capable of witnessing that or being a part of that, then they can project that back onto you, which is going to create even more challenge. So it's not that you need to show up with everybody without a mask or being really vulnerable. Definitely not. But it's really more about those times that you think, okay, I'm going to do this because I know that Spending too much time on my own isn't good for me. So you try to engage with somebody. But in that engagement, you're not fully engaged. It's not you that's really showing up. It's that facade, that mask. Recognizing that is really important. Again, not to judge. That's not helpful, and it's not warranted. I think, in fact, if you've not been aware that that's happening, meeting that with self-compassion is really important and can actually be quite healing. So how many times have you been around people? Like, really think about this. Not where you come up with a number, but just really let yourself kind of reflect a little bit and think about how many times have you felt or acknowledged to yourself afterwards feeling worse, feeling more alone after engaging. How many times have you then either beat yourself up about it, or it's reaffirmed that connection is just not for you? I can't tell you how many times I've heard that from people. And I think part of why I wanted to do this video is, like I said, this week on social media has been all about the importance of connection. And I just started this new group, and it's all about connecting. And several people have actually said that part of the reason that they wanted to join the group was connection, to feel less alone. And part of the most important part is that they've recognized, by being in groups, by hearing me say it over and over again and experiencing it, they've recognized how important connection is and how easy it is in our lives. Not that they've said this specifically, but how easy it is in our lives to be surrounded by people that we may have a lot of love towards, and yet still feel very alone. But it's not because connection isn't available to you. It's not because you're not cut out for it. And it's absolutely not because you're not deserving of it. It's because you're likely not really allowing yourself the opportunity to be deeply and truly connected. I think it's also important to acknowledge that feeling deeply and truly connected isn't just a decision that we make. Making a decision to work on it is a decision we can make. But it is work, it is a process. It requires practice. And part of that practice is being vulnerable. And that's never easy. But I definitely don't want you feeling kind of turned off by the idea that connecting doesn't work, that you're not really capable, because you are, and you deserve to feel that deep sense of connection, a sense of ease when you're around that person or those people, an ease of just showing up as yourself, to move through the world and those relationships from a place of confidence and love that isn't, and I don't mean like romantic love specifically or familial love, but love that is open, again, to not only giving, because I think that a lot of you find a lot of ease in that, but to truly be open and connected, we have to be able to not only give, but receive. And we can only really receive when we can begin to trust in that connection. And of course, we can't really begin to trust in that connection if we don't allow ourselves to experience it first. So, what can you do over these next few days? And here in the US, it's a holiday week, Thanksgiving. Whether it's a holiday week or not, so, if you're watching this 6 months down the road, what can you do in the next few days to practice showing up without the mask, without playing a role? Where can you practice telling somebody how you really feel? Instead of saying, "Oh, I'm great, thanks." Maybe being able to say, "It's been a hard few days," or "I'm feeling kind of stressed out about whatever." I'd really like to invite you to consider how you might be able to practice that. And maybe the only person that you feel safe enough doing that with is your therapist. Or maybe you have one person in your life that you feel like you can do that with, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be multiple people. One step at a time. That's it. So thanks for watching. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What came up for you as you listened to this? Can you relate to it? What role do you tend to perform? All of it. I'd love for you to share in the comments. And if you think this video would be helpful to somebody, please consider sharing. And of course, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And lastly, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so and click the little bell for notifications. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for being a part of this community. And if you're in the US, I hope you're having a beautiful day for this Thanksgiving. And if you're anywhere else in the world, I hope that you also have a beautiful day and have a great weekend.